Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and of course, this is basically like a immediate, fresh live reaction to what we just saw. You know, me being Rico of RicoScores, we're gonna go position group by position group and talk about every player that had something to do with this loss, good or bad. Of course, mostly bad on this entire Commanders team. We're going to talk about all the coaches as well. Eric Bieniemy, Jack Del Rio, of course, Ron Rivera as well. We got to talk about, again, every position group. So we're going to talk about quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, corner, safety, and even special teams. And a lot of the good that came from that as well. But, again, this is a fresh reaction. So after I watch the All-22 and I get a hold of a lot of really interesting stats, I'm going to do like a secondary type of review video, as I've typically been doing most weeks after games, where I come with a bunch of advanced stats, Pro Football Focus grades and stuff like that. So be on the lookout for that. But today, again, a fresh reaction to what's going on. First of all, Jonathan Allen went off after the game. I don't know if y'all have seen the clip, but I'm gonna make sure to include that clip in this video. He went off after the game. I mean, just straight up cussing and cussing, not playing. And it's like, has Ron Rivera lost the locker room? It's really scary right now. But of course, the main objective of this video is to find out who to blame for the Commanders' loss versus the Giants week 7. A full-blown review, again, every position group. We got to talk about Jahan Dropson, even though we got to talk about why that's his fault in one way, but also Sam Howell's fault in another way. And also, my main takeaway is that it's never one player. It's never one play as to why we lost the game. So we can talk about Jahan Dropson all we want, but it was an amalgamation of a lot of different things that went wrong in this game. Also, Terry McLaurin is clutch, man. He's a different type of guy. Also, we got to talk about the outlook of this team moving forward. Are we playoff pretenders instead of contenders? Because if you can't beat the Bears or the Giants, who can you beat? Have y'all looked at the rest of our schedule, man? Do y'all know the rest of our schedule right now, y'all? It's scary, man. We got, who we got? We got the Eagles up next. We got the Patriots, who just beat the Bills, who stomped us out, who barely beat the Giants, who just beat us. Then you got the Seahawks. You got the Giants again. After the game we just saw, I'm not even confident about that. We got the Cowboys, then the Dolphins. Luckily, we can't lose December 10th because that's when we have a bye week. We can't lose that week. Then the Rams, then the Jets, probably with Aaron Rodgers back, and even without Aaron Rodgers, woo-wee. San Francisco 49ers, and then the Cowboys again. Again, if you couldn't beat technically the easiest opponents on your schedule between the Bears and the Giants, who can you beat on the rest of that schedule? Are we just suddenly going to become way better and be able to beat all of these teams that we're definitely not favorited against so far this season? I don't know, man. I'm interested in seeing what ends up happening and how we may try to find a way to pull this off. But again, we're about to dive into every position group. And before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm the like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get a notification each and every time I release an informative and opinion video just like this one. I will be having the call-in live show where you can call in, you can voice your opinions tomorrow as in Monday. So make sure you pull up for that. Of course, I will also be having a game review after the All-22 after we get a bunch of stats and Pro Football Focus grades. I'll be doing basically another review video with that later on down the line, probably like Tuesday. I'm working on a mock draft, and not even just because we lost this game. I already planned on doing a mock draft maybe like tomorrow, Tuesday. Maybe I'll push it back to Wednesday. We'll see. Before we even had this loss against the Giants, just because we're 7 games in, I just wanted to go ahead and knock out a mock draft so I can do another one a few games from now, and then another one, like a third one at the end of the season, and then we're going to dive into the offseason, do a bunch of mock drafts and stuff like that. But after this loss, it only feels right to definitely do a mock draft now. I was already planned on doing it. Now it feels like I kind of have to. Like, what hope do we have? How can we fix this team to have a better next year? But of course, I'm not giving up on this season just yet. But it is some fun to go ahead and do a mock draft now and just to see what we can predict. Because, you know, my mock drafts be fairly on point. You know what I'm saying? Like Jake Bobo over there for the Seahawks. Y'all saw me mock draft him to us several times last year, at least once or twice. But I was screaming I wanted him several times. And now he's out there making ridiculous contested catches with touchdowns. Must be nice. And then, of course, make sure you stay tuned for all the live streams. Again, call-in show live stream tomorrow. And, of course, I will be live streaming this upcoming game against the Eagles next week as well, just just like I did this Giants game. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that. And if you want to support the channel because YouTube is still tripping, make sure you donate to the Cash App, $RicoScores. I will shout y'all out in the next video, a live stream, whatever I have going on, if you donate while I'm like not currently streaming and I can't thank you immediately. The PayPal is also williamhc94@gmail.com. And again, the Cash App is $RicoScores. And without further ado, man, let's get it.
You tell your family you can be a commander.
Well, first of all, if you want a defensive sack, come one, come all, come down to the Washington Commanders. That we're giving them away for free. If you just can't find a way to get a defensive sack, you can't find a way to get to the quarterback, go ahead and play the Commanders. They'll give you a few. And they'll give you some extras on the way out, just in case, you know what I'm saying? Say here, having a fire sale of them. Also, Chase Hughes has a great point, too, because he said, I feel like I've watched that Commanders game roughly 100 times in my life. And then JP Finley added to it, especially in the Meadowlands. And man, I can't disagree. It just feels like it's the same old thing, the same old story. That's why that was the main part of Jonathan Allen's rant. Again, when he's cussing and everything. I'm gonna play that clip when we get to the defensive line part of this video. But that was pretty much the majority of his rant. It's just the same thing over and over again, and he's sick of it basically. So I feel the exact same way. I'm sure most fans, if not all fans, feel the exact same way. We're all tired of it. And it's crazy too because the Giants did everything in their power to give us that game. They literally did. They literally like, please, Commanders, please take this game from us without us having to look like we're trying to tank. Like, I mean, maybe they won a high draft pick, but they just can't go out there and obviously tank. Otherwise, the NFL is going to look into it. They're going to probably end up losing the first round pick like the Patriots did with all of their collusion, all that type of stuff. I mean, the Dolphins or Patriots. Yeah, it was the Dolphins, my fault. But either way, like, the Giants did everything in their power to give us that game, and we just didn't want to take it from them. They fumbled the punt, and which allowed us to score the only offensive points we had in the game, and they dropped the pick six. Sam Howell should have had 2 interceptions. He only had 1. I mean, they literally did everything they can to please give us the game back. And we said, nah, no thank you. We don't like wins. Y'all can keep them. We allergic to those, man. You can keep those, man. We got a win allergy, so you can hold on to those over there. Y'all can have all of those, man. You want some sacks? We got those. But the dubs, man, y'all can keep them. And then on top of all of that, the Giants were super banged up and hurt. Like almost their entire offensive line. They were playing third stringers at certain positions. And not just the offensive line, they had injuries everywhere. I mean, you can't forget. That was not Daniel Jones out there. That was Tyrod Taylor. That was their backup quarterback. They had backups in top to bottom, but most notably the offensive line. Even though our defensive line had a good game overall, Chase Young had a dominant game. I feel like we should have had an even better game. If the Giants can get as many sacks as they got against our starting O-line, I feel like our D-line should have had more sacks than them. If the Giants had 6 sacks, we should have had at least 7 is my point there. Like, that's inexcusable. Shouts out my boy Rio Robinson. Make sure y'all subscribe to him and follow him on Twitter and all of that. He put it all perfectly. We're gonna dive into it again, position group by position group, to break things up, because we may say like the receivers sucked or whatever, but not Terry McLaurin, not Curtis Samuel. We could say offensive line sucked, but maybe not necessarily everybody. But in general, I agree with Rio Robinson. The defense sucked. Not everybody, but a lot of it. But overall, the defense wasn't terrible. They weren't as good as I expected them to be coming into this game. They didn't play to my level of expectation, but this game definitely wasn't on them. When you only give up 14 points, especially with 7 of them coming immediately after a Sam Howell interception, technically the defense only truly gave up kind of 10 points because Graham Gano missed a chip shot. The defense played fairly well. Didn't play as well as they should have. I'm not giving the defense a pass at all, but they were not the blame on this. This was the offense. And so continuing with Rio Robinson, the defense sucks, the O-line sucks, the coaches suck, the quarterback sucks. All can be true. And I agree. A lot of people are trying to pinpoint, oh, this is all on Eric Bieniemy. Oh, this is all on Sam Howell. This is all in the O-line. No, there's a fair share of blame to go everywhere. We can blame a lot of people. Again, we're going to get to that as we get the position group by position group. But also, before we dive into everything, we got to talk about Rivera first. Isn't it crazy that we're just always that game where people just can get right? If you can't get right, go ahead and play the Commanders. They'll get you right. I mean, Kyle Pitts didn't have like the greatest game against us, but people have been complaining left and right about how he never gets fantasy points. The Falcons never use him. He got a touchdown against us. We ended up winning that game, but still, we're the you get right against the Commanders. Yeah, I mean, see what the Bears did to us. We're the get right people, and then they continued against the Giants. Darren Waller's touchdown ended the New York Giants streak of 3 straight games without an offensive touchdown, which was the longest drought since 1976 with 4 games straight from a team. So again, the Giants were on pace to basically set a historical record for the worst offense ever. And they still, even though our defense wasn't the truly to blame for this loss, they still were able to get 14 points on us, both of them being offensive touchdowns. And they technically should have had 17 because Graham Gano missed that crazy kick. Now, I know a lot of people are going to point to the refs, and y'all know me, I'm the first to call them out when they're to blame. And yes, I definitely feel like they sided with the Giants more than they sided with us. But my main thing to take away from this is that we should never be in situations where the refs can make us lose, where they can affect the game that much. You shouldn't be down 14-0 against these Giants this season, no matter what's going on. So you can blame the refs all you want, but we lost this game even without the refs. That we deserve way more blame than the refs deserve. Again, the refs did have some funky little calls in there. Definitely seemed like they were siding with the Giants a little bit. But when you're a Commanders fan, what's new? We've won 3 games in spite of that already. Why couldn't you beat the Giants under those conditions? Why couldn't you beat the Bears under those conditions? So, and they were nowhere near as bad as they were last year, where they literally gave the Giants game to win. That was the same referee squad and everything. They were nowhere near that bad. Now, I mean, I hate how inconsistent the refs can be, and it always feels like they're against us. But again, at the end of the day, when you allow the Giants to go at 14-0, and you allow the game to be in the refs' hands, you're hoping for a call. You're depending on the refs to make the right call. You're not playing football the right way anyway. So I don't care how bad the refs were, how good they were. It doesn't matter. We didn't deserve to win, even if the refs were robots today. If they had AI cameras, 4K, HD vision, and made every right call, we still wouldn't have won this game today. Or at least we didn't deserve to win. So, hey, man, I'm not complaining about the refs this week. I'm definitely not blaming them for none of this. And it's just crazy, too, because, again, the Giants had 5 offensive touchdowns all season. They got 2 today. That's inexcusable. So, again, that's a bad stat for the defense, but even the defense wasn't that terrible. But other teams have been completely shutting them out. So, by that standard, the defense was terrible today. And then also, the Giants came into this game with 5 sacks all season. All season. Through 6 games, 5 sacks. Go against us, get 6 of them. Like, what is that? What is that? Why are we doing this? The Falcons, before they came into our game against them, I think they had 4 sacks all season or 5. And then they got 5 against Sam Howell. I mean, just Mr. Get right. We are, whenever you're struggling in any way, one of your players is struggling, you can't get any sacks, you can't score offensive touchdowns, just play the Commanders. They'll give them to you. Easy. You know, all you got to do is ask. They'll give it to you for free. And it's just crazy, too, because Sam Howell has now been sacked 4 times in every game this season at minimum. The least he's been sacked in a game is 4 times. David Carr is the only other QB in NFL history to begin a season like that. That's incredible. And the reason I'm talking about this right now, instead of during the offensive line part or the Sam Howell part or even the Eric Bieniemy part, is because there's blame to go around. Typically, throughout this season, I would say Sam Howell was the blame for the majority of the sacks that he's taken. I feel like it was more so the offensive line today. I feel like the offensive line probably had their worst game yet. Because even against the Bills, all the sacks that we gave, I think it was like 9. I feel like maybe the majority of them were on Sam Howell holding the ball too long or not making the right read or anything like that. Today was just purely the offensive line getting beat bad, like losing one-on-one matchups, blitzes coming through clean like nothing happened. So I feel like it's more so offensive line than anybody else, but Sam Howell's still to blame. Eric Bieniemy still to blame for a lot of it as well. So that's why I'm talking about it now, before we even get the Ron Rivera. Also, of course, the Giants now more than doubled their sack total for the season, and they doubled it just in the first half. Again, 5 sacks coming into the game total. In the previous 6 games they played against other teams, they got 5. They doubled their season total before the first half was done. They only got 1 more in the second half, and that's just terrible. So that's just like that doesn't even make sense. Also, at a certain point in the game, by 2:36 p.m. when Nikki Javala tweeted this, the Commanders' ratio of sacks allowed to net passing yards in the first half was 1-3. 5 sacks to 15 net passing yards. It's impossible to win a game like that. I'm surprised we only lost by 7 points with a statistic like that. If you have a start like that, you should automatically be forced to forfeit the game. That should basically be the equivalent of 21 skunk. We had 5 sacks to 15 net passing yards. We had 1 sack for every 3 net passing yards we had in the game at a certain point. That literally makes 0 sense. That's incredibly bad. Like, I don't think we could try to be that bad on purpose. Also, Sam Howell has now been sacked 41 times in the 2023 season. That's the second most by any quarterback, any player in the first 7 games of a season since the 1970 merger. And so since the 1970 merger, you have Derek Carr with 43, you have Sam Howell with 41 or 40. I could be wrong. I think it may be 40 total, 41, 40 either way. And then you also have David Carr with 37. David Carr is 2 of the top 3. That's a shame. And Sam Howell, again, you got to remember, David Carr was playing in 16 game seasons. Sam Howell is in a 17 game season. So even though Sam Howell has been sacked very slightly less than David Carr through 7 games, he has an extra game to go, so he's on pace to beat David Carr's record right now. That's incredible. We're on the way to set a historical record for most sacks since the Super Bowl merger. That's ridiculous, man. Now moving on, let's talk about Rivera. And there's a lot of things to point out. My biggest thing is just roster construction and the mentality of the game. But you also can't forget situational awareness in situations like, I mean, before halftime, we had 2 turnovers with 30 seconds left. He just conceded half. He literally was just like, let's just run the clock out. We had 2 timeouts. We could have at least tried to get a field goal. He was like, forget that. Yeah, because you just never know what would have happened there. And then on top of all of that, kicking that field goal with 13 minutes, 28 seconds left in the fourth, I would have went for it on 4th down. Now, granted, hindsight is 2020. You can't predict that the field goal kick would get blocked. But even assuming that we would make the field goal kick, like best case scenario, I personally still prefer it to go for that 4th and 3. And then after the game, I'm saying that, yeah, it is recommended that we should have gone for it on 4th down according to, like, you know, all those advanced stats, like 29.9%. You win the game, you kick the field goal, or you should go for the 4th down, which is 34.3%, a 4.3% difference. So not a huge difference. And again, I understand why he kicked the field goal. I'm not mad at him for that, but me personally, I would have went for the 4th down regardless, making the field goal or not. And then the fact that we didn't make it, it just makes you feel so stupid and deflated. Like, man, I would have preferred letting Sam Howell drop back again and maybe get sacked than to just miss a field goal, get it blocked. Like, come on, dog. So, but again, my main thing with Ron Rivera is the management of this team. Like most notably this offensive line. A lot of that is on him, point blank, period. You can argue that Andrew Wiley's his guy, but other than that, everybody else is pretty much a Ron Rivera guy. He either signed him or drafted him, brought him in here some way. And then shouts out to Chad Ryan over there in the UK. He put it perfectly. Honestly, it would be astounding for a brand new ownership group to fire the coaching staff mid-season, especially after only 7 weeks. But the fact that I'm not comfortable ruling it out is just wow. The fact that I'm not even a fire everybody guy. I'm not a panic fire everybody. But the fact that I'm not absolutely sure that we shouldn't is astonishing in itself. I'm completely with Chad Ryan. I'm not a fire everybody after we're 3-4. It's not like we're 1-6, but it's just like it's the worst a 3-4 could feel, honestly. It's literally the worst you could possibly feel after a 3-4 without having like all of your starters hurt. This is like the worst you can feel being a healthy 3-4 possible. Like as far as bleak as ugly as a future it could be, at least as it could feel. So again, as a non-fire everybody guy, I'm like, let's just ride it out, see what happens. That's typically how I am. The fact that I'm not 100% like there's no way you can fire everybody at this point is just terrible in itself. And I'm pretty sure most of y'all just feel like, nah, go ahead and fire everybody. Forget that. Man, I can't believe that I can't disagree with y'all right now. I don't necessarily know if I do agree with y'all, but the fact that I can't disagree with y'all is crazy in itself. Also, this whole trying to be a second half team thing is not working, dog. It's not working. This identity of we're a second half team, that's how you lose games. Second half teams are not playoff teams. Those aren't synonymous. You can't be a second half team and be a playoff team. You got to be a complete team. You got to get off the better starts. The best start we've had this season was against arguably our best opponent this season, the Eagles. So it's just like no excuse. Why can't we do that over and over again? We could do that against the Eagles. Why can't we do that against the Bears, the Giants, against all these other teams we've played? There's no excuse. That was our best game this season, and it's the game we lost. It looks like that really felt like the best, most complete game we played as a total team. You just had Jahan Dropson having his worst game of the season, which is, crazy because he's had a couple of bad games. But that was his worst game of the season. Even though he did have the game tie and catch or whatever, that was his worst game. It just felt, and Tress Way had his worst game of the season, arguably his worst game of his career. If Tress Way would have kicked the way he kicked today against the Eagles, we probably win that game. So it's just a lot of things, a lot of random stuff went wrong against the Eagles, but in totality, that felt like that was the best game we put together all year. And it's just like, I know it's any given Sunday, but golly, man, why can't we play like that from now on? But moving on, Ron Rivera, year 4. Shouts out to my boy Tan Top Podcast for pointing this out, because I completely agree. Has Josh Harris seen enough? Look at the resume of this season alone. We had to come back to win against the 1-5 Arizona Cardinals. We had to come back to win versus the 1-5 Denver Broncos, blown out by the Buffalo Bills. Overtime loss versus Philly is arguably our most impressive game this season, even though it's a loss. Blowout loss to the 0-4 Bears at the time. Close win versus Atlanta. Not very good either. I mean, they just beat the Buccaneers, but you can argue between the Philly overtime loss and the Falcons close win. Those are our best games we've had this season. And I didn't even feel that great walking away from the Falcons game. And then an ugly loss versus the 1-5 Giants. Again, has Josh Harris seen enough? Because honestly, you can only argue we may have had 1 or 2, maybe 3 best games doing it. Like, it's not good, bro. Not good. Also, 0-2 in the division, terrible. 7 points on the road versus a 1-5 team, terrible. Again, torched by the Bears. Shouts out to my boy Marshall, my boy Marsh W_7 for this. Losers in 3 of the last 4 games. This was supposed to be the easy part of our schedule. Now we have the big dogs coming up: Philadelphia, San Francisco, Miami, Dallas, 40, all of that stuff, man. And he basically said, so we can't beat these good teams. At least these better teams are going to come out and put us out of our misery. We can't beat the bad teams. What do we expect to do against the good ones? So he's basically saying once we start to go against these really, really good teams, they're going to pretty much just end our season, and we'll just be able to mentally let go at that point. We'll see, though, man. I'm holding out hope, but it's ugly. Also, shouts out to my boy at We Want Dallas. He said the Commanders, a name they let Ron Rivera handpick for some reason with 0 input from the fans. Good point. Just lost to the worst team in the league. They're 1-4 in their last 5. It's year 4. Ron Rivera is 21-31-1 in DC with 0 winning seasons. What more do you need to see? All valid points. And again, the fact that we're 0-2 in the division already to start the season is not good at all. Like, that's not healthy. That's not healthy at all. Also, shouts out to Grant Paulson for this. Washington has now lost to the 0-4 Bears, the 1-5 Giants over the past 3 weeks. Their .428 winning percentage on the season is the same as the overall record in Rivera's tenure. Another inexcusable loss, and we're basically right where we started. Ron Rivera keeps saying he needs 4 to 5 years to rebuild. This is the 4th year, and we're literally at where we started. Our record this season so far is the same exact record as the overall record Ron Rivera has had since he's become our head coach. Terrible. And then shouts out to my boy Linnell Willingham. You can follow him on Twitter, Nell_BTB. Brings up 2 good tweets. The first one, we cut Chase Roulier because he was off the injured to only then sign the off injured Nick Gates at center to replace him directly. Andrew Wiley was overpaid. I guess you can maybe blame that on Eric Bieniemy, even though Ron Rivera has the last say on that. Cody Barton isn't good, even though Cody Barton isn't as bad as it gets. And we'll talk about that when we get to our linebacker group. David Mayo? Hoo-wee. Also, the draft class hasn't been impactful. What do you do to change this? You can't even be taken seriously in the NFC playoff picture right now. I agree. Also, the offseason plan is being exposed. It's organizational malpractice to enter a must-win season with the 5th round QB with 1 career start and a career backup. Then to make matters worse, you do nothing to help out said quarterback via the free agency or the draft. This front office sucks. So do you want to blame Ron Rivera? You want to blame Martin Mayhew, Chris Polian, all the Marty Herney, all of these guys, Eric Bieniemy, Jack Del Rio? Just put them all in one big blame pile along with a lot of the players, man. Now, speaking of Eric Bieniemy, let's get to him, man. Now, Howell was not good today overall, and he was pretty bad in the first half. And the O-line was really bad as well. And you could probably argue that the O-line was probably the worst part of this game for us. Who knows? But Eric Bieniemy's up there. Eric Bieniemy's easily top 3 up there with the O-line as to the biggest reasons why we lost this game. I love Eric Bieniemy, but he was terrible today. Arguably his worst game. Even against the Bills, it just didn't feel that bad and stupid as to why we were losing so bad. Ooh, defensive line Armando Blunt just flipped from Miami to Florida State. Oh, man, look at Florida State giving everybody the big bag. Oh, my Lord. They NIL money don't end. Moving on, though. Again, the Commanders' only points came on a series when they were literally given the ball in the red zone by a muff punt. And we had to convert a 4th down just to get 10 more yards to get the 1st and goal to run it in on 2nd and goal. Like, it was a muff punt and a 4th down conversion just to score our only points of the game, our only 7 points of the game. Didn't score a single point any other way. That's terrible. Don't forget that it wasn't just a muff punt. It was a 4th down conversion. It took all of that. Like, golly, man. Golly. Moving on. It's just the offense was so weird because it was like we were either able to drive all the way up the field, go from the 20 to the 20, almost effortlessly it looked sometimes, and then we just couldn't score. Red zone just terrible. We couldn't score to save our lives, or we were gifted the ball within the Giants' red zone after a muff punt and a converted 4th down to score our only touchdown. It's like we had a limited amount of offense points per drive. Either you can use those points to move down the field, or you can use those points to score a touchdown. But you can't do both today. Not today. That's what it felt like, to put it in video game terms. Also, just to go ahead and like scream this to the loudest I could, but I'm not, we went 1 of 15 on 3rd downs. Now, you can blame the offensive line, you can blame Sam Howell, you can blame a lot of people. Receivers not getting open, receivers dropping passes, but at the same time, 1 of 15 on 3rd downs. At the end of the day, the offensive coordinator got to take some of the blame from that. Also, I blame Eric Bieniemy for taking too long to adjust to this terrible offensive line. Now, is it his fault that the offensive line was absolutely atrocious today, specifically Nick Gates, and we'll talk about that later when we get to the offensive line part of this video? Not necessarily, but at the same time, it took him way too long to adjust to the offensive line. You saw at some point in the second half, we finally just started to run plays, started to run a little bit more screens, bootlegs to get Sam Howell out of the pocket, or we were asking Sam Howell to go ahead and throw the ball sooner to get it out of his hands quicker so the offensive line wouldn't have a chance to get beat by the offensive line and it actually affect the game. That's literally the only reason why we had 5 sacks in the first half and only 1 sack in the second half. It wasn't because the offensive line started playing better. Eric Bieniemy just started to run a completely different offense, and I definitely feel like he waited too long to change to that offense. So it just sucks, man. And it just feels like overall, if you want to compare this game to the Bills, which is probably the game that I felt this bad with as well, this game was just as bad as the Bills game offensively, minus just a couple of more turnovers, but just not necessarily defensively. Again, defensively, they were not that bad against the Bills until like really the 4th quarter where basically the levees broke. Because again, some of the Bills' points were interception return for a touchdown against Sam Howell. So the defense was a little bit better against the Giants, and then the offense was just as bad, if not, it felt worse than against the Bills game. But also, you got to remember, this is again against a way worse opponent, so it is what it is. Also, 42 passes to 19 runs is a little crazy, Eric Bieniemy. Because you got to remember, it was like a 1-possession game for the most of the second half. So I would still like to see a little bit more balance. I know every time Brian Robinson came in there, it just felt like we couldn't run the ball. And for some reason, when Chris Rodriguez came in, we could. But you just can't abandon a run like that. 42 passes to 19 runs when it's only a 7-point game majority of the game. The game never felt out of reach until like the last 3 minutes. That's not good. Really, the last minute, because I mean we were down 7, trying to score with a few seconds left on the clock. So the game was just never out of reach to the point that you couldn't run the ball. So we got to stop that. Eric Bieniemy's had a bad habit of that so far this season, where we've passed the ball 3 times, 4 times as much as we ran the ball in any given game. I don't like that. And then of course the red zone offense is atrocious. 7 points. And we were down there quite a bit. Makes 0 sense. Also, 13 of the 14 Commanders' offensive possessions ended in a punt or a turnover this game. Like, I don't know what else to tell y'all, man. Eric Bieniemy, you were not it tonight. I'm not going to say that you're just not it in general, but today you were horrible. You were horrible. A lot of the blame goes on you. I would put Sam Howell in the top 5. I would put offensive line and Eric Bieniemy in the top 3. But yeah, man. Speaking of Sam Howell, let's go ahead and get to the quarterback. He's not devoid of blame at all, man. At a certain point, he was 3 of 14 on dropbacks with 41 yards, 3 sacks, and an interception at a certain point in the game. At a certain point in the game, by 2:25 p.m., he had a 12.8 passer rating out of 158.3 possible passer rating points. Tyrod Taylor was a 140. Ridiculous. And at a certain point in the game, Sam Howell had as many completions as sacks. He had 5 completions to 5 sacks. Getting a lot of blame to go around, but that's terrible. By the time the first half ended, he had a 35.71 completion percentage, 60 passing yards, atrocious, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, 5 sacks again, 11 rushing yards, and a 19.9 passer rating according to ESPN. That's terrible. Now, granted, he came out and was better in the second half. Not great, but better. And he has some crazy elite throws to Terry McLaurin. But he also still made a lot of rookie mistakes, man. First of all, that final play of the game, the final offensive play of the game, he threw the ball behind Jahan Dotson. Now, granted, you're Jahan Dotson. You're a first-round receiver. You need to catch that. But, I mean, Sam Howell just made a lot of the layups not look like layups today. That was a lot of his fault, man. That was not good. Definitely inaccurate the majority of the game. He had some very ridiculous high-tier elite throws at times. But overall, I would say he had an inaccurate game. And even even after the game, Sam Howell in his press conference talking about the last play said, quote, he was wide open. I have to give him a better throw, unquote. I completely agree. And also, when you're looking at the replay, it looked like Logan Thomas may have been wide open for a touchdown rather than throwing at Jahan Dotson. So Sam Howell apparently made the wrong read and made an inaccurate throw. But again, Jahan Dotson does have to catch that. But still, Howell missed a bunch of easy throws today. He missed a lot of layups where some of the sacks he took, there was a wide open running back, Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson at times open underneath enough yardage, enough distance from the nearest defender where you can assume they was going to get the first down. So it just made no sense. Sam Howell was not good today. Better in the second half, not good overall. Not even necessarily good in the second half. Again, he missed a lot of plays like that last play of the game right there. I agree with Al Galdi when he said Sam Howell has plenty of work to do, but Eric Bieniemy called a bad game early in the game. The offensive line had Sam Howell under constant siege and committed 7 penalties, 6 accepted. Let's not forget that too. So we want to blame Sam Howell a lot, and good reason we have to blame Sam Howell for a lot of things. But the offensive line not only gave up 6 sacks, but they had 7 penalties with only 6 of them accepted. The holding would have been accepted that we on a screenplay, a successful screenplay. Well, define successful. It went for like 10, 12 yards or something like that, but it wasn't enough to get the first down. So it resulted in a 4th down play where we ended up punting it. That's the only reason they didn't accept it. Otherwise, if it would have been a first down, that would have been 7 accepted penalties from the offensive line alone. That's inexcusable, man. That's completely like, that doesn't even make sense how the offensive line was that bad. 6 sacks and 7 penalties, man. Out of 10 penalties we had, 7 of them were on the offensive line. Now, we can blame Ron Rivera again. You can blame Ron Rivera for a lot of stuff, but like I keep saying, it's a lot of blame pie to go around. Ron Rivera, yeah, that's on you for the lack of discipline, but at the same time, offensive line just getting beat like that, come on. And then also on top of that, the supposed number 2 receiver really has been Curtis Samuel so far this year, but your first round pick, Jahan Dotson, had his 3rd bad drop in 4 games. You got to help Sam Howell out. Again, he wasn't good. He was bad today overall, but you got to help him out, man. Gotta help him out, man. I'm just not enjoying this. Shouts out to Frankie on Twitter for pointing this out. He said Eric Bieniemy's offense, before we move on to running back, 7-step drop play every play, only knows how to run from the gun, no balance between run and pass, long developing plays in blitz situations, refuses to get playmakers the ball, and too little too late when it comes to adjustments. I agree. That all sounds on point to me. That sounds just about right for what I saw today. Now, running back wise, really interesting. Chris Rodriguez was the best running back today for some odd reason. I don't know if Brian Robinson was hurt or if they were just trying to feed the hot hand, but Chris Rodriguez had 7 carries for 31 yards. Brian Robinson had 8 carries for 23. It felt like Chris Rodriguez had the most carries, but he didn't. But in total, including Sam Howell and Antonio Gibson each having 2 carries, technically 2 runs, we only had 76 rushing yards to the Giants 106, which makes absolutely 0 sense. Makes no sense at all. And then Antonio Gibson, I mean, him and Brian Robinson were open at times in the passing game. Sam Howell just didn't see them, so they just weren't even able to have a better impact. And the offensive line just wasn't blocking well for them to get anything in the run game. I don't necessarily blame them. I'm going to have to look at the all-22 to get a more accurate reading and analysis on what happened with the running backs, but I'm just going to assume it was the offensive line's fault, or the Giants were probably stacking the box, and then Sam Howell should have been able to take advantage of the stacked box, and we didn't. Moving on to the wide receivers. Well, first of all, the first half, it seemed like everybody was bad. Even Terry McLaurin had that drop pass that should have been a first down that killed the drive, and nobody, it felt like, was getting open. Every time I looked, it was pressure in Sam Howell's face. You zoom out, no receivers open. It's like, where's Sam Howell even supposed to throw the ball? But then, second half, Terry McLaurin was not playing. Overall for the game, he had 6 catches, 90 yards, and he had a 15-yard pass interference that he drew. So, hey, man, on top of the catch that he made. So, hey, man, second half, that boy Terry McLaurin wasn't playing with nobody. He was so clutch, man. Some of them catches he made were ridiculous. Now, granted, we also got to give Sam Howell credit for these elite throws that he made. You couldn't literally walk up and hand this ball to Terry McLaurin better than Sam Howell threw it. But still, man, Terry McLaurin to make this catch with the hit that he took, ridiculous. Look at this clip. Just just in case if you forgot it or if you didn't see the game.
Rhythm here in the fourth. He's going to come away with the win. Howell looking deep down the sideline for McLaurin. Takes a big hit, and he held up.
Like, that man is different, bruh. He had moments today where he looked like, yeah, he's the top 10 receiver in the NFL easily. And then he continued this same drive where we made it all the way down the field, made clutch catch after catch, man. It was beautiful. Him and Sam Howell just finally figured something out that drive. I don't know what happened the rest of the game, though. And then now to Jahan Dropson. And again, I don't want to put too much blame on him, but at the same time, you are a first-round pick. You have to make that catch. I know it was thrown behind you, but come on, dog. Here's another angle of it if you haven't seen this angle right here, where it's like, come on, dog. You gotta catch that. Sam Howell, bad throw, but the guy is open. He needs to catch that. Again, bad throw from Sam Howell, but that's literally a drop. If you have the hands that I'm used to Jahan Dotson having until we got to the season, you know, it just, you got to be better than that. But at the end of the day, man, my biggest takeaway, more than just, I mean, I like calling Jahan Dropson is just more fun than anything. At the end of the day, man, we're not going to put all of this, like I said before the intro, on all of this on Jahan Dotson. I almost called it him again. My fault. We're not going to put all of that on him, man. One player does not lose you a game. It's an amalgamation of a lot of different things, dog. Several things. No matter of fact, a lot of things contribute to this loss. Now, Jahan Dropson dropping that one pass at the end, you know, of course you want to blame all of that on him, but that's just one play out of a lot of plays that went wrong from everybody. Offensive line, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, Eric Bieniemy, Ron Rivera, defensive line, linebacker, cornerback, safety, Jack Del Rio, special teams, everybody. That's just one of the many bad plays we had today. So it's not all on Jahan Dotson. It's not. I mean, because I know a lot of people, like, say if you're a super 2K hooper, and you know, like, people will be messing around making all kinds of bad shots and bad plays all game, and then you miss the game-winning shot at the end. Everybody's mad at you, but we would have never been in that situation where that game-winning shot, me missing that, would have mattered if y'all weren't just BSing the whole first through 3 quarters, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how that went, where that's not. And Jahan Dotson had a couple of good catches leading up to that play, so it's not even like he had a terrible game overall. And again, that should have never came down to that. And then even if, another reason why I don't blame Jahan Dotson for this loss, he's a part of it. It's not like I'm taking the blame away from him at all, but I feel like it's way more what everybody else did wrong than just one player, one play at all. But even on top of that, the reason why I don't completely blame him for this loss, because even say he catches that and it's a first down, we have first and goal with like 20 seconds left. How confident in you are you in us, first of all, to just tie the game? Like, first of all, for us to get the touchdown, and then do you think we're going to make the PAT? How confident are you in that? Because the field goal we mixed was pretty close to a PAT that got blocked. So, first of all, to get the touchdown with no timeout, well, we had like 2 timeouts left, I believe. I think we had 2 timeouts, but either way, it wouldn't have, you know, to get the touchdown, just period, even though we had 4 downs to go, to get that touchdown. I like Sam Howell, and I like the momentum we kind of had going there, but how confident are you in us to get that touchdown and then also tie the game? And then how about after tying the game, hopefully the PAT doesn't get blocked, are you confident in us to then win in overtime? Like, let me know. So it's just like, come on, dog. We're not going to put all of that on Jahan Dotson, man. And Jahan Dotson, there's no reason for y'all to get on him and to make him feel worse than he already does, because he knows he's taking this L big. He feels like the L is on him. I don't feel like the L is completely on him, but he's taking it like that. I mean, look at this picture right here. Everybody else is in the middle of the field, and Jahan Dotson is in by himself, just sick to his stomach. Like, come on, dog. Does that look like a guy that doesn't realize that that the game feels like it was on him? Now, granted, that's no excuse. You being sad about it doesn't change the fact that we lost that game. That's just how I am. I don't, you know, I'm not an emotional person, so you can cry and be sad about yourself all you want. All I care about is results. So it's not like I necessarily feel sorry for him, but this is a guy that realizes he made a mistake, and y'all attacking him on the internet isn't really making things better. And then you already know Jeremy Reeves is not playing. He's already on Twitter talking about people need to let up on Jahan Dotson, and he's like fighting back, literally going one-on-one with fans right now as we speak on Twitter. I'm not going to dive into that too long because I'm not a real drama person, so I don't care, but I did want that to be known that that is a thing that's going on right now. So again, I agree with JP Finley. That loss was a whole lot more than a receiver not making a catch on 4th down. Point blank, period. Point blank, period. But at the same time, I'm wondering, like a lot of y'all, what happened to Jahan Dotson this season? Like, I can't even explain what's wrong with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not hurt. He was more banged up last year than this year. He's fully healthy this year. So I don't know. I can't explain why Jahan Dotson has regressed so ridiculously, man. I don't even get it. Now, speaking of other receivers, we already talked about Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, but also Curtis Samuel looks like your wide receiver 2 right now. He made some pretty good plays in the receiving game. He made catches. He was dependable with his hands, and he made people miss sometimes to get a first down, even when he caught the ball before the first down. And then Byron Pringle, shouts out to him. 1 catch for 16 yards, but he also had a 38-yard kickoff return as well that sparked something in the offense a little bit. Also, De'Ami Brown didn't really contribute much in the passing game, but he did force a defensive holding that gave us a first down, and he's also the one that recovered that muff punt, if I'm not mistaken. Moving on to the tight ends, where's Cole Turner, Eric Bieniemy? If Logan Thomas wants to keep dropping all of these passes that I swear we need, they're just like drive killers drops, or it's just a defensive player making a good play on them. But either way, it just seems like the ball gets thrown to Logan Thomas, and for some reason, one reason or another, it ends up hitting the ground without him completing it, whether it's his fault or a great play by the defender, whatever. Why is Cole Turner not more involved? But speaking of Logan Thomas, quietly had a bad game. He had some clutch catches for us. I mean, he made some plays. He had some good catches, but overall, 4 catches, 51 yards. So you would think that's a pretty decent game, but he also had some crucial drops. So I definitely can't say he had a good game, but I wouldn't necessarily say he had a terrible game, I guess. But now, offensive line wise, the reason most people are probably watching this video. First of all, Sam Howell said that he saw as much press coverage he's seen all year against the Giants today, which says a lot of things. When you hear that, you may thinking like, Sam Howell or receivers or whatever. But no, that just means that our offensive line can't block worth a lick. So they figured if their offensive line, if the Commanders' offensive line can't block, why not we send everything we have at Sam Howell to force him to throw the ball quickly, and then we're going to play press man coverage so nobody's open until like 3 seconds into the play, but you don't have 3 seconds to throw the ball. We're blitzing, or even if we don't blitz, our 4 defensive linemen are whooping y'all 5 offensive linemen so bad, again, you don't have 3 seconds to throw the ball. And against press coverage, you're going to need like 3 seconds to throw the ball. It takes 3 seconds basically to get open. The Giants had the right strategy for how bad this offensive line. So this is why I say that a lot of the blame is to go on the offensive line, because the Giants' whole game plan revolved around the fact that our offensive line was bad. And what is Sam Howell supposed to do when receivers aren't open because he has no time to throw the ball? At a certain point in the game, I don't know how it ended up finishing, but according to True Media, at a certain point in the game, his average time to throw or sacks on dropbacks for Sam Howell at a certain point was 2.23 seconds. So on average, he had 2.23 seconds every play to either throw the ball or to get sacked. That's ridiculous. What can you do against that? And that's why the Giants played press man. I felt like we should have done a better job of trying to take advantage of it. Eric Bieniemy tried. That great clip that I showed y'all earlier with Sam Howell throwing the perfect dot to Terry McLaurin, he threw that. That was a deep field pass, and he didn't have any time to throw it. He threw that, literally hike the ball, throw it. I hope it gets there. I hope Terry McLaurin's open. There was no read it. Terry McLaurin should get open. Okay, scan the field, throw it. We didn't have enough time to take any deep shots like that. The only deep shots we could take were the ones like that, where Sam Howell's throwing it in less than 2.23 seconds deep down the field and just praying that Terry McLaurin can get there in time. And it worked 1 or 2 times, but you can't build an offense around that. So again, you want to blame Eric Bieniemy a lot, you want to blame Sam Howell a lot, but at the end of the day, what can you do when the offensive line is so bad it dictates how the entire game is being played by the Giants? What can you do? And then the same thing goes for, reverse, and we're going to talk about it when we get to the defensive side. But if the Giants are dominating our offensive line and able to play press man because of it, why isn't our defensive line dominating their offensive line and allowing us to play press man so that we can take advantage of a dominant defensive line? Like, what's the Eric Bieniemy on one end and Jack DeVries on the other? What's going on here? You know what I'm saying? Also, the offensive line had a lot of false starts. Like I already said, they had 7 penalties, only 6 of them accepted, but most of them were false starts. So not only did you give up 6 sacks, you had 7 penalties, most of them false starts. That's inexcusable. Absolutely inexcusable. And then you have Nick Gates, who was our worst offensive lineman today. And that's hard to say because we had a couple of bad ones, few of them. But Nick Gates was the worst one, man. I know blocking DeMarcus Lawrence and Leonard Williams is a tough task. That's the heart of their defense. 2 of the best players on their entire team. But man, I mean, he allowed 3 sacks himself By the time they had 5 sacks, Nick Gates was 3 of them. I don't remember where that 6th one came from. It could have been on him as well, but I know by the time the Giants had 5 sacks before the half, Nick Gates was 3 of them. Here's one of them right here. Again, just straight up beat. So again, what is Sam Howell supposed to do with that, dog? Like, Tom Brady can't do nothing with that. And also at a certain point, Sadiq Charles got hurt, and a lot of people would feel like he was been our most consistent offensive lineman this season. So him getting hurt did kind of suck. But when Stromberg came in, we didn't really notice much of a difference because again, Eric Bieniemy changed the offense so much that it didn't matter how terrible our offensive line was. Ricky Stromberg, Sadiq Charles banged up, Nick Gates getting whooped. It didn't matter. We were getting the ball out of our hands so quickly, it just didn't matter. We should have gone to that sooner. But at the same time, the offensive line, can we be able to run an offense where we don't have to do that? How about Eric Bieniemy be able to utilize his entire playbook rather than only like a third or a fourth of it because he's having to go to this ridiculous offense because y'all can't block anybody? Again, it's blame to go everywhere. But speaking of Sadiq Charles, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of surprised Sadiq Charles took this long to get hurt, and hopefully it's not that bad. Hopefully he's ready to start by next week against the Eagles. And honestly, if anything, Ricky Stromberg needs to replace Nick Gates, if anything. And with as good as Cornelius Lucas was last week against the Falcons, he probably should go ahead and replace Andrew Wiley while we at it. Go ahead and the offensive line can't get any worse. You might as well go ahead and see what we got in everybody else. Go ahead and throw Chris Paul out there while you at it too. But yeah, I'm surprised Sadiq Charles made it to week 7. If you would have told me Sadiq Charles was going to be our starting left guard all the way back in April before the draft, I would have been like, there's no way he's making it to week 7. He made it to week 7. Hey, shouts out to him, man. But do I expect him to stay healthy for an entire season? No, I do not, man. Do I expect him to be available to play a 17-game season, play all 17 games? No, I do not. But it is what it is, man. Now moving on to Jack Del Rio. Shouts out to the defense for forcing the Giants to only go 5 of 16 on third downs. But again, we got to compare ourselves. That sounds good. A lot of things I'm going to tell you about when it comes to the defense statistics-wise and breaking down what the defense did today, it's good on the surface, but when you consider who you're playing, it's not good enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, these stats that we put together, 5 of 16 on third downs, yeah, that's good against the Eagles. That's good against the Bills or something. And it's technically good overall, but against the Giants, it should have been even better. Again, the Giants had 5 offensive touchdowns coming into this game. They got 2 against us. So when you look on the surface, allowing 14 points against an opponent, that's pretty good. But when you sit back and think about it, like, wait a minute, we allowed 14 points against a team that had 35 offensive points all season coming into this game. That's not good. If anything, our defense did the worst against them technically out of any other team this season except for the Cardinals, who are 1-5. So, like, how happy can we be about the defense? But if anything, we should have had expectations of shutting these guys down, basically. According, comparing what the Giants' offense has done against other teams' defenses so far this season, we should have only allowed 0 points, technically. So allowing 14 points again, yeah, that's cool. Allow only 14 points against 7 of them coming from a Sam Howell interception, technically, because they scored like 2 or 3 plays after that. But we can't let the defense off the hook, because allowing only 14 points sounds good, but when you think about the fact that it was against the Giants, it's not that great. I mean, again, and what sparked that idea for me is, again, the defense only allowed them to go 5 of 16, but how come their defense only allowed us to go 1 of 15? So it's like, yeah, 5 of 16 is great, but look at what the Giants defense did against us. 1 of 15 on third down. So it's like, I mean, again, some of these things are going to sound like praises, but when you look at it in a vacuum, yeah, some of these stats are good, but comparing who we played against, it wasn't good enough, in my opinion. So the defense did give up a few big plays as well, and that's not good. And I feel like that big one to Jalen Hyatt, I'm not sure about that. Mostly, if anything, because they called that catch for Terry McLaurin in overtime against the Eagles not a catch on the field, and then left that on the field, and it just was like, after review, we're going to let the play stand. We're going to let the call stand. But then against the Giants, they called catch on the field, and then they let that play stand after they reviewed as well. So I'm just like, can the refs at least be consistent? You know what I'm saying? That's my problem with it. You know, we could sit here and debate whether or not it was a catch all day. But my biggest thing is the fact that if that's a catch, then Terry McLaurin's thing in overtime against the Eagles should have been a catch. But that's just the refs not liking us. Now, but the defense did do what they were supposed to do. They gave up a few big plays, but at the end of the day, they got a big turnover from Saquon at a really good time. That basically, like, if the Giants score on that drive, the game is over. So they gave us hope again, just for the just for the offense to basically just throw it away. And now moving on to the defensive line. Oh, and also before we leave Jack Del Rio, I mean, it's like, kind of, what can you do? The Giants were basically, I'm pretty sure the majority of their yards came from targeting David Mayo in the passing game. What can you do? When Cody Barton gets hurt, David Mayo is forced to play out there. Khaleke Hudson was playing, dude. Khaleke Hudson was out there, but they just needed David Mayo on the field as well. And it just seemed like every time David Mayo was on the field, he was getting targeted. And some people are screaming, why is David Mayo covering Darren Waller? Well, okay, well, who do you want David Mayo to cover? Yeah, he can't cover Saquon out of the backfield. You want that? Do you want him covering all of these 4-3, 4-4 speed receivers that the Giants have all over the place? So it's just like, who can he cover? It's not really Jack Del Real's fault. If anything, it's Ron Rivera's fault, malpractice, mismanagement of the roster, and as to why David Mayo is still on this roster to even be available for Jack Del Real to have to throw out there. So I can't even blame Jack Del Real too much for this. And again, overall, the defense had a good game, but just looking at who we had a good game against, they should have had a better game. So I'm not letting them off the hook. But going to defensive line, Jonathan Allen, man, not happy about the Commanders to say the least. This man went on a cussing tirade. If you haven't seen the clip, here it is right here. And I completely agree with him, man. I completely agree as a fan, as an analyst, that I'm 50 minutes into this recording. My throat hurts from talking all day through the live stream, from talking throughout this video. I'm doing all of this research. I'm watching these games with an analytical lens instead of a fan's lens. Like when I'm watching my Georgia Bulldogs games, I'm just purely a fan. I'm just sitting back and enjoying the view, win or loss, even though we haven't lost in forever. You know what I'm saying? Even win or loss, I'm enjoying it as a fan. I'm not sitting up. You know, the equivalent of sitting up when you playing a video game. That's how I watch Commanders games, because I know I'm gonna have to talk about it after the game, so I need to make sure I see as many things as possible and analyze things. Whereas Georgia, I'm kicking back, I'm eating, I'm chilling. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, not only me, but all of us are just putting in so much time and effort to watch these Commanders, to support these Commanders, to break down and analyze these Commanders. Get my throat hurt because I've been talking basically nonstop for the last 6 hours for them to just go out and do this. So yeah, I'm frustrated with you, Jonathan Allen. Again, here's the clip right here.
What's the evaluation like after a loss like that?
They whooped our ass, plain and simple. Got to be better.
Anything they did that surprised you guys early on?
No, I want to say so. I think it's just a lack of focus on our part, a lack of attention to detail, not starting fast, and creating holes that are too big for us to overcome in the second half.
Does it get frustrating when that seems...
Yes, it does. I'm fucking tired of this shit. Fucking tired of this bullshit. It's been 7 fucking years of the same shit. Tired of this shit.
What can you do now going forward to get it turned around?
Get our minds right and get ready to play fucking Philadelphia.
Hey, man, that boy is done. That boy is through, man. We don't beat the Eagles this upcoming week. Ron Rivera probably will lose the locker room, man, because if Jonathan Allen, one of the leaders of this locker room, arguably the leader of the locker room, I mean, between him and Terry McLaurin, can't wait for it to be Chase Young, hopefully one day, if he makes it past this year on our roster. If he feels that way, I'm pretty sure everybody feels that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, if Jonathan Allen, your leader, your voice of the locker room, the guy that's usually level-headed, you know what I'm saying? The guy that's usually the guy that when in doubt, everything's going wrong, he's calm, he's collected, we'll get through it, we'll be all right and stuff like that. I don't remember a time I've seen him this mad, this through. And again, it's crazy because we are, and shouts out to my boy Georgia Bulldog McCole Hardman, just got traded back to the Chiefs and they already got a big punt return. I love what I'm seeing. But yeah, man, this boy is through, bruh. He's through, man. You never see Jonathan Allen come out of character like this. He's done. This is as depressing as a 3-4 team could possibly be right now. I'm not gonna lie. And again, is Ron Rivera losing the locker room? Because it's Jonathan Allen, the guy that typically holds his temper, keeps his attitude at bay, normally says all of the right things, does all of the right things. If he's that upset to the point that he's cussing to a microphone that way, imagine how the rest of the team feels. But hey, man, shouts out to Chase Young, man, because he tallied his first 2-sack game of his career today. He had a pretty good game today. He wasn't great all day, because I'm expecting with, again, same logic as the defense. The defense, if you look at the stats, you're like, okay, cool. But then you realize it was against the Giants, who haven't done anything all season on offense. You're like, actually, nah, the defense should have been better. So same thing for Chase Young. Shouts out to Chase Young, arguably one of our best players today. But the Giants had backups in everywhere on the O-line. So even though Chase Young did lead our team in sacks today with 2, that's a good game. Against that Giants O-line, you should have had more. I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from Chase Young having his first 2-sack game of the season, but I mean, and I also don't want to get on Chase Young's head too much, because where was Montez Sweat? He had that 1 sack in the first quarter. Where did he go? Where did Jonathan Allen go? Where did Deron Payne go? All of those guys. Casey Toohill, who had 2 sacks against the Falcons. I don't remember him even being out there. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I don't want to get on Chase Young's head too much, but it's like, yeah, the defense did well, but you should have done better based on who you were going against. But again, shouts out to Chase Young for 2 sacks. Really, it felt like he had 3 because of that one design run against Tyrod Taylor. He stopped him in the backfield. So Chase Young ended the game with 2 sacks, 3 tackles for losses, and 2 QB hits. So that's at minimum 5 pressures and 3 tackles for loss against the run game. So that's a great game. But again, I just feel like it should have been even better just based off of the team you're going against. But it is what it is, man. Shouts out to Chase Young for the great game. I don't want to take nothing away from that. I'm just trying to be a realist, man. But also, you also have people on Twitter joking about, well, at least Chase Young's trade value's gone up. And man, I hate to hear that, man. I really hope we find a way to keep Chase Young and Montez Sweat, even though I doubt it happens. But right now, Chase Young is outplaying everybody on the defensive line. Chase Young has been our best defensive lineman this season. Before this Giants game, I don't know what it is after the Giants game. I'm at to see. I'll probably get back to y'all on that when I do my advanced statistics and Pro Football Focus grades video by like Tuesday or something, after I watch the game again, all 22, get a better feel of what happened. But coming into this Giants game, Chase Young was leading all defensive linemen, edge rushers, everybody. That's including Nick Bosa, that's including Khalil Mack, Myles Garrett, all of them, and pass rush win rate. So technically, by advanced statistics, Chase Young has been the best edge rusher in the NFL the past couple of weeks before this Giants game. I don't know how I ended it with the Giants game, but at the same time, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for losses, and 3 QB hits is big time, man. Shouts out to him. Also, moving on to the linebackers, Cody Barton gets hurt. And if you thought things couldn't get any worse than Cody Barton, here comes David Mayo. I tried to tell y'all while y'all were complaining about Cody Barton, it can be worse. Now, we have every right to complain about Cody Barton, but I just kept saying, don't be blind to the fact that Cody Barton is out there starting 100% of snaps every game for a reason. There's a reason he literally doesn't come off the field, and you saw that today, man. David Mayo ain't it, but of course, a lot of us knew that. He led the team in tackles, which is not a good thing. And also, again, like I explained earlier, he was getting attacked on every play. Every play, especially the second and third quarters. Literally, if they needed a first down, we don't care who's on David Mayo. We don't care who David Mayo's covering. Just throw it to that guy. If it's Darren Waller, if it's a no-name receiver, if it's a running back, if David Mayo's covering them, that's where we're going with it. I don't care how open Darren Waller is on another corner. I don't care if Jalen Hyatt is running down the field past Benjamin St-Juste. Whoever David Mayo's covering, you attack that guy. Or we throw it behind the backfield on David Mayo's side and dare David Mayo to make an open field tackle, which he couldn't do. Khalil Hudson missed a couple of open field tackles as well. So, hey, man, a lot of blame, some blame goes to him too, especially in that first quarter, some of them missed tackles. But Khalil Hudson overall didn't have a terrible day, but it wasn't good either. Jamin Davis had a pretty decent game too. He had bad coverage on that Darren Waller touchdown though. One of the only touchdowns that the Giants have scored all season. Jamin Davis had some zone coverage on Darren Waller and it didn't work out. So based on what I've seen these past couple of weeks, how well he covered Bijan Robinson in man coverage and how poorly he covered Darren Waller in zone coverage, I'm just gonna assume Jamin Davis is better in man coverage than zone coverage. And I hope Jack Del Rio pays attention to that and moves accordingly. Adjust accordingly to that. Now also Cody Barton, just to let you know, had a walking boot on in the locker room after the game. We'll see what happens. He's walking on his own, but he has a boot, so I don't expect him to play next week against the Eagles, but maybe he does. And even if he does, y'all already don't like Cody Barton. Me included. How do you expect a Cody Barton that's hurt to play? So he may be out for a little while, I ain't gonna lie. We may not even want to see that guy back out there, but at the same time, we don't want to see David Mayo. So can we please elevate Jabril Cox? Because at this point, it can't get worse than David Mayo or hurt Cody Barton. At this point, I refuse to believe Jabril Cox is worse than what we're seeing, especially what we saw today from the linebackers. I just refuse to believe. I don't care. Maybe you're providing excuses. He doesn't know the defense, or he's not big enough, like strength-wise. He doesn't have enough weight. It can't be worse than what I'm seeing, especially from David Mayo today. Now, moving on to the cornerbacks. Other than that one play that I thought was out of bounds, Benjamin St-Juste had a pretty good game today, because even that first reception in the first quarter against them, he had great coverage. It was just a perfect throw from Tyrod Taylor. It was literally like to the right sideline, just like that perfect throw that Sam Howell had to Terry McLaurin that I showed earlier. So Benjamin, and then that should have been touchdown. He great coverage and did a good job of making sure the ball hit the ground, even though the receiver should have caught it. So overall, a great game, other than getting beat by Jalen Hyatt deep down the field. And I felt like that was kind of out of bounds in my opinion. But even if it wasn't, I'm not gonna blame Benjamin St-Juste for this. Because first of all, why is Benjamin St-Juste, who runs a 4.6 something at best, covering Jalen Hyatt, where literally his only trait is he's fast? He doesn't have great hands. He's not a great route runner. He's a one-trick pony. All he does is run deep down the field in a straight line fast. Why do we have arguably our slowest corner on him? I know you're trying to hide Emmanuel Forbes, and I believe I did see Emmanuel Forbes out there at times. I think Emmanuel Forbes should be with the fastest receiver at all times, no matter what's going on at this point. And again, speaking of Emmanuel Forbes, him and Fuller, it almost felt like I forgot they were on the team. So I guess that's a good thing. I don't know how many snaps Emmanuel Forbes played, and that's another thing we'll talk about when I get to my advanced stats. I'll have like the snap counts ready for y'all by the time Tuesday comes around. So make sure, again, you pull up for that review video as well, because it's going to be a more accurate analysis of everything. Right now, this is just my raw emotions, raw feedback on everything that happened. The Tuesday video is going to be way more analytical, way more advanced stats, way more accurate, and all that type of stuff. But either way, the fact that Emmanuel Forbes was out there at times, I know he did play. I don't know how much he played, but I know he did play. And the fact that I forgot him and Kendall Fuller were even on the team is a good thing for a cornerback. That means they were either not targeted, or when they were, they didn't allow any catches. So shouts out to them. Again, I mean, there weren't really even enough throws out there for them to get targeted, because David Mayo, wherever he was covering, they threw it to him all the time. So the DBs didn't even have a chance to make a play as far as that goes. Then safety-wise, Quan Martin was balling in the first quarter before he suffered that concussion. He came back into the game, but he just wasn't very noticeable after that. He didn't make any bad plays, but I also didn't notice him make any positive plays. But in special teams and in coverage, that man was balling in the first quarter, man. I'm excited about Quan Martin. And then Cameron Curl, he made a couple of plays, but I didn't really notice him a lot. So that's another guy. I'm gonna have to look at the all 22 to see like if he was really good, if he was really impactful or not. Maybe he was just doing his job and I just didn't notice. I don't know. So I don't want to cast too much judgment on Cameron Curl, but I would hope that if you're this, you want to be this top paid safety, I'm gonna need you to be more impactful. Yeah, do your job. Yeah, I know as a DB, it's better for your name not to be called, but if you want to be one of these top paid safeties, I need you to get more interceptions and make more big plays rather than just doing good or doing decent. I want you to do excellent. I want you to change games. Again, that's a lot to ask of a safety, but still, man, if you want to be one of those top paid guys, play like one of those top paid guys. Those top paid guys get interceptions. I'm gonna need more out of Cameron Curl as far as that goes. Again, I know I'm asking a lot of Cameron Curl and Chase Young, because a lot of guys had way worse games than them. But the guys that had good games, I'm like, hey man, I want better though. Just to make it clear, yeah, you had some good games, but I want better from y'all. That's point blank period, because I expect greatness out of this team. Maybe if I were Ron Rivera, I'd be cool with the games that Chase Young and Cameron Curl had, but I'm not. I want to win playoff games. I want to win Super Bowls. Again, I'm a Georgia Bulldogs fan. I'm used to greatness. My Georgia Bulldogs haven't lost a game in like 2 real life years. I'm expecting greatness out of this team. I don't expect them to be the best team in football in the NFL level like my Georgia Bulldogs are in college football. But like, I gotta expect more than what I'm getting, dog. Average is not okay. And y'all know my whole logic even before Ron Rivera's been here, and a lot of y'all have disagreed with me on this, and y'all been mad at me for saying this, but I'm telling you, I prefer to lose out or win big. That middle of being average, perpetually average. Again, I warned y'all from being somebody raised in Atlanta, watching the Falcons, watching the Hawks. Being average for forever gets you nowhere. You're never going to have a good enough draft pick to get elite players, and you're never going to be good enough to go anywhere. You're just stuck in the middle forever, and that's where Ron Rivera is. Why you end up, instead of getting Osiris Torrance how we wanted in the draft, we tried to trade up for him, but somebody took him before we could. If you had a higher draft pick, you could have gotten him. They wanted Emmanuel Forbes, but they wanted other players more, like a tackle. They prefer Broderick Jones and those tackles in there. Imagine how good we would be with a tackle right now. Emmanuel Forbes is either benched or barely playing. At this point, we might as well have had one of those tackles. You would have gotten them, Paris Johnson, whoever, if you would have had a higher draft pick there. I've been saying this for years. A lot of people didn't want to believe me, and now that we've gotten average Rivera, now you're seeing that there's just no hope in being average. You're never going to be good enough to win a Super Bowl. You're never going to be bad enough enough to get those elite game-changing players that can help you win a Super Bowl. I mean, I know it's taken Chase Young a while. Number 2 overall pick, our best defensive player on the field right now. I know having a high draft pick isn't the end-all be-all and isn't just automatically you're going to get an elite player, but the proof is in the pudding, man. A lot of these teams that have made great turnarounds had great draft picks, got their elite players, and kept it pushing. And look at us, stuck. Look at us stuck right here. So yeah, man, I tried to warn y'all. Now we're average. There's no way to go but up. Unless y'all want to go from being average, going 8-8, 8-9 or whatever, and then having a terrible season to get the high draft pick. But we already have somebody who I feel like can be our franchise quarterback. So at this point, that doesn't even seem like the answer. I don't think losing out even makes a lot of sense at this point. We might as well go all the way in and see if we can make the playoffs, because we get a high draft pick, then what? We just going to completely fire everybody, rebuild, get rid of Sam Howell, and draft a top quarterback? I guess you could, but I've been screaming for us to do that years ago, not now. Now I want to do it the least I've wanted to do it in years. So hey, man, I tried to warn y'all. A lot of people disagreed, but we wouldn't be in this situation if we would have done it my way or way sooner. Now special teams wise, poor Tressway, he's gonna have to sit in a nice little ice cold chilly bath today, because that man had to punt 10 times today. Sam Howell at a certain point had 10 completions while Tressway had 10 punts. I think he ended up with like 11 or 12 total, but at a certain point in the game, Sam Howell had as many completions as Tressway had punts. Poor guy's gonna need to ice his leg down. He deserves better, man. Also, just to warn y'all, we do have Philly coming up next week after we're 3-4. So, you know, take with that as you will. Jamison Crowder, other than that one time he dropped the catch, he muffed that one play and went out of bounds, so it was inconsequential. But he was pretty good today overall. And Joey Sly, I mean, what can you do about a block kick? I don't know if that's his fault or not, but hey, man, that sucks. But moving on, before we get up out of here, again, we have the Eagles coming up, which is not good. Ron Rivera's presser, quote, "We have 10 games left to go. You never know what's going to happen," unquote. I mean, technically he's right, but that doesn't sound like the good thing to say right now, dog. That doesn't give you answers. That's just a typical cop-out reply from a coach. Also, I agree with Craig Hoffman right here. Howell says post-game the play calling was fine and they just have to execute. Also says, quote, "You can't just throw away a game plan," unquote, because of a few bad plays. Craig Hoffman goes on to say, "I like him saying that. He's also 100% wrong. The game plan stunk, and it should have never been the game plan to throw away in the first place." Like, I know you're saying, yes, the game plan, we worked all week on this. After just a few bad plays, you can't just throw it out. But how about, to Craig Hoffman's point, and I completely agree, how about that not be the game plan to start with in the first place? So, hey, man, it is what it is, dog. Also, Sam Howell said, quote, "We feel like we were the better team, but that wasn't the case today," unquote. And after you get blown out by the Bears and the Giants almost beat the Bills that blew you out, I mean, how can you even say that? Yeah, technically on paper, we should be the better team, but we're not. The way we played against the Bears, the way we barely beat the Falcons, and then, of course, the way we just lost to the Giants directly to them, we're not the better team. The Giants are better than us, even though their record is worse. And then lastly, before we get up out of here again, I was trying to tell the Commanders to take Jake Bobo in the draft, and now he's out there making ridiculous catches for the Seahawks. We definitely could have used him in the red zone. We don't have any tall receivers. Byron Pringle right now, I think, is 6'1", tall is 6'2", our biggest receiver right now. Jake Bobo is like, what, 6'6", 6'5", I think, at least. Some places are saying 6'4", but either way, he's a big jump ball receiver. We let go of Cam Sims. We didn't keep Marcus Kemp. You know how valuable a tall receiver would be with our red zone offense being as bad as it is. You know how helpful it would be to have a tall receiver like a Jake Bobo, the one that just made that ridiculous catch for the Seahawks just like an hour ago while I'm recording this. I told y'all to draft them. And it's just, again, roster mismanagement right there. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, please. I know the Commanders are bad, but I hope I'm doing a good job. So if you want to support the stream, again, donate if you can to the RicoScores Cash App. That's $ RicoScores, and also the PayPal WilliamAC94@gmail.com. Because again, YouTube is tripping, so y'all donating is the only way I'm getting any money off of these videos and live streams. So I really appreciate everybody that's donating. Appreciate y'all. I know the game was bad, so I understand why a lot of people did not want to donate today. But make sure y'all at least stiff arm that like button. That's free. Make sure you subscribe. That's free. And hit the bell next to that subscription button. That's also free. At the very least, do that for me. And also, of course, let me know Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Do you agree or disagree with any of my points everywhere, every position group, every player? Who's the most to blame in your opinion? Yeah, let me know how you feel about everything, man. I'm gonna catch y'all with the live stream tomorrow for the call-in show. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.